Like Danielle said, my name is Phil Romine. I started with Interfaith Action as the Congregational Engagement Coordinator in April of 2021. Just over the last couple of weeks, I've transitioned to a new role. My boss left back in July, and I have moved into her position. However, my focus is still on, as Danielle said, building and deepening relationships with houses of worship in and around Greater St. Paul. And as you'll hear, from time to time, we've expanded that net when kind of the community has asked us to do so. So with that, we'll dive right in. So Interfaith Action, we've recently been starting with a land acknowledgement, and this is ours. It is a work in progress, and it is ours. So Interfaith Action is located on the traditional and contemporary lands of the Dakota people, who have lived here since time immemorial. And despite centuries of colonial theft and violence, this is and will always be Indigenous land. And we honor the ancestral stewards of this land and celebrate their past, present, and future. Our mission at Interfaith Action is mobilizing diverse faith and spiritual communities to engage work that supports our neighbors' stability and economic mobility. And our vision is that poverty will grow, that poverty grows, and opportunity grows, and poverty recedes when people of faith invest themselves in effective action. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the ways that our programs aim to realize this vision. So before we were Interfaith Action, we were a few different things. We actually started out in 1906 as the Ramsey County Sunday School Association. So things have changed over the century since then. Primarily, that was we started out as an organization that trained largely non-Lutheran Protestant Sunday school teachers, as well as we coordinated area schools who were satellites for optional religious education. So once upon a time, kids could be let out early from school to get religious instruction at local congregations if they opted to do so. And so we were sort of the coordinator of that. That's what we started out being. In 1943, we expanded and added social services to the educational work that we were doing, and started to lean more into the ecumenical movement. In 1943, becoming the St. Paul Council of Churches. The area came into the name as the metro area expanded, and the population boomed. And then in 2015, we became Interfaith Action of Greater St. Paul, and that was largely a recognition of the fact that we were already collaborating outside, beyond Christian denominations, traditions. And we were finding that work fruitful, and we were also realizing that the work that we were doing well, which was largely our anti-poverty work, which is what we're focused on now. The Christians weren't the only ones who cared about it, and they weren't the only ones doing good work around it, and we could do more and we could do better if we were working collaboratively. So in 2015, we became Interfaith Action of Greater St. Paul. So the Interfaith Action of today, we have 4 program foci, if you will, and we have sort of 2 continuing ways of opportunities for learning and engagement for our volunteers, as well as religious leaders, to connect more deeply with the community. So in 1952, our Department of Indian Work was formed to respond to the needs of the American Indian community, that the population of which expanded greatly in the early 50s. There were a lot of needs in that community as a result of, frankly, sort of a bait and switch from the government, saying that there were lots of jobs and opportunity available in urban centers. The asterisk next to that, of course, was probably not if you're not white. So the Department of Indian Work was formed as a response to emergency needs for food and clothing. We still operate a food shelf and clothing closet. We're now, as we'll talk about soon, we've expanded services to after school and summer youth Indigenous curriculum and programming. In 1998, we started a program called Project Home. In 2016, after we became Interfaith Action, one of the first programs that we developed was a free legal services partnership with Morningside Missionary Baptist Church on Selby. So that's our community power program. And then in 2017, we wanted to expand and plug folks into meaningful volunteer and literacy work in and around St. Paul, and that's our Opportunity St. Paul program. So we'll talk a little bit about each of those things, but first, I wanted to set up a little bit of what our programs kind of seek to address. There's all different kinds of ways to do, as this series is titled Local Advocacy. There's all kinds of ways for people to get involved in meaningful work. And all of the work is needed at all ends. And one thing that I was struck by over the summer, there was a really good article from NPR on kind of profiling Fred Gray, who is a longtime civil rights legal strategist, who Dr. King referred to as the chief counsel of the civil rights movement. He was honored with the Presidential Medal of Freedom this past summer. And one of the quotes that he was given that really stuck with me was in reflecting on kind of how far things have come, as well as how far things have not come. He said that we've changed the laws, and I would say we've changed some of the laws, but we haven't changed the attitudes behind the persons who are enforcing the laws. And so that, I think, really speaks to the kind of interpersonal work, the spiritual work, frankly, of people encountering each other in ways where real needs are getting met and barriers of judgment and stereotyping are being broken down. And that's really kind of the nexus of our work. I was also reading an article actually in my own Presbyterian monthly magazine. There's a food and faith podcaster out of Maryland named Derek Weston. He's heavily involved in his local church. And he was talking, in this article, he was talking about, again, how you can't discount certain social justice work and prioritize other social justice work. It all kind of needs to happen. But that there are kind of helpful criteria for how it should happen. And the thing that really stood out to me in that article was acts of mercy should be done in ways that restore people to wholeness. And so that's really where our work kind of lives. So the first, our longest running program, the Department of Indian Work, just celebrated 70 years of work in and around St. Paul, offers emergency referral education and economic services for Indigenous families. So the food shelf and the clothing closet are the primary emergency services that are provided for families. We had a significant increase in food. I believe last year we served around 875 families. We partner with the University of Minnesota to provide diabetes education and dietary ongoing dietary nutritional curriculum for the American Indian community. We have youth enrichment programs that are after school, as well as summer youth programs that are all based around Dakota and Ojibwe language acquisition and cultural practices. We were, when COVID initially hit, we were the Minnesota Department of Health's COVID community coordinator for St. Paul. So we did a lot of coordinating of and publicizing of vaccine events and testing sites, all that kind of stuff. And we're in the initial phases of building an economic mobility hub on the east side of St. Paul. And if people are curious about what that entails and what that's about, I can address those questions later. We moved, so we actually sold, we used to be, our offices for Interfaith Action were on Summit Avenue, right across from McAllister on the north side of Summit Avenue. And we sold that building in the fall of 2021. And the Department of Indian Work moved to Little Canada on Centerville Road, which was much more convenient for the bulk of the families needing access to our services. Most of them had to take 2, if not 3 buses to get to Summit Avenue. We're actually much more easily accessible in Little Canada to East Side families and Greater East Side families. And during COVID, we actually shut down in-person service for quite a while. And we got a van, and we were running deliveries, even as we almost doubled, as the need for food almost doubled as the pandemic kind of ramped up toward the end of the first year and into its second. So that's a little bit about what our Department of Indian Work is doing. Project Home is our transitional housing services for families experiencing homelessness. So this program used to be a mobile program. And so there were 2 congregations, and I believe there was 1 or 2 schools that were in the cohort as well that would be essentially monthly pop-up shelters for families. And they could host 4 to 5 families at a time. I believe we had a capacity of 40 beds total per month. When COVID hit, obviously we had to change that. And so initially families were at First Baptist Church for about 2.5 to 3 months. They moved to Hotel 340 for a few more months. And then we made the connection with the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. And I'm not sure who the first initiator was on making that happen, but it was absolute magic. It was really incredible, because in the process of kind of transitioning through COVID, we went from a 40-bed capacity to the hotels being, I believe we had up to 75 or 80 beds. And then now, in collaboration with the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet, their provincial house has been converted into a 100-bed family shelter. So we are now actually the largest family shelter for families experiencing homelessness in Ramsey County. In addition to transitional housing services, overnight stays and things, we've included the Family Place. We used to partner with them. They were based out of First Baptist Church for the longest time. And actually in late 2019, they closed, and they were the primary day program for our families. And because a large chunk of the funding for that program came through Ramsey County, and we had such good relationships with them, we were able to essentially fold the day program into Project Home's purview. So we folded the day program into that, and since then we've added comprehensive case management services, so jobs, budgeting, and savings. We actually now have we've got a grant with mHealth. I believe it's mHealth Fairview, to have an on-site nurse twice a week have office hours at Project Home. And then we worked with Project Reach to bring in after-school homework help and tutoring help for families. So there's tutoring that actually happens on site at Provincial House. And just for those of you who are not aware where or what the Provincial House is, it's a corner of Randolph and Fairview. Very close very, very close to Wisdom Ways. We are only a hallway apart. And the sisters and CSJ have been absolutely incredible in this partnership. As soon as our families moved in and the weather started to warm up, we asked, could we put some things up? And they were like, put up a playground. Let's put up a basketball hoop. And so all of a sudden, the corner of Fairview and Randolph became extremely hospitable, and it became a place where children were running around and laughing. And, parents could kind of pull their shoulders down a little bit. This is a little bit of a sneak peek inside the space. My understanding is this is the historic space where the nuns used to live. This was dormitory use once upon a time for the nuns, and then was converted over time. the thing that's great about this is our families range in size from a parent and a child to 2 parents and 7 children, or 2 parents and 8 children. So having rooms that have different size capacities is really ideal, especially for a family shelter. So it really has felt very much like home, and the sisters have been really great about saying, we don't need to have certain artwork here. We can move some of the artwork elsewhere, and you can put up some things here. And it's really been just an incredible partnership. So those are the Department of Indian Work